So meanwhile, my name is Michele, and I work at Igarape Institute, and I'm directly implicated in the Citizen Security Dialogue, in fact, so I'm taking this opportunity also to thank you for coming to our third dialogue. And is it working? Yes. So my country has achieved the Millennium Goal, aiming to reduce by 2/3 the child mortality, but is expected to kill between 2011 and 2019 more than 42,000 children and adolescents. To make things even more complicated, the imprisonment rate of adolescents from 12 to 18 years old in Brazil is an increasing one. So if you compare the data from 2011 to 2012, we have a national increase by 50%. And in the two states where we worked, so Rio and São Paulo, in Rio we have an increase by more than 45%, and in São Paulo almost 20%. This big picture is not a particularly inspiring one, but fortunately we do have some stubborn actors in Brazil adopting different educational strategies to deal with some of the risk factors that are taken as important ones for perceived vulnerable groups, in this case adolescents, especially youth and children, and violence-affected urban areas. This initial mapping of some of those strategies designed and implemented in the cities of São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro made possible for us to identify some current trends about what has been done in these two cities and how those strategies can impact the urban violence reduction and prevention debate. So this mapping follows an initial mapping made by Igarape Institute, the Citizen Security Dashboard that Robert presented yesterday. And in fact, in this Citizen Security Dashboard, out of 196 citizen security safety interventions held in Brazil, 75 contained educational components. And about 40% of them were held at the city level. So in order to keep a good relationship with my chair and with the audience, I'm not going into the details of such initiatives, but I want to share with you a few remarks on some of the perceived trends that could be valuable to our discussions on urban violence reduction and prevention. So the first thing I want to share with you is that our assumption that educational strategies can be thought as part of safety policies is not that clear for the actors we met, especially in the education field. Two likely reasons. Our long tradition of understanding violence as a matter of police is not that appealing for engaging new actors in this debate. In Portuguese, in fact, we don't even have the word safety, so we just have security. And sometimes it's hard to explain what security are we talking about. The second reason is because sometimes, even when we are talking about prevention, crime metrics cannot help that much. So you can have, for example, a narrative that if you work with at-risk youth in some neighborhoods, you are likely to reduce crimes on those areas. But crimes are not necessarily the metric those implementer actors have, and neither the reason why they are working with these youngsters. To some extent, we can say that the risk factors were mainly taken by implementing actors as indicators of the urgent need of improved social protection, social protection networks around perceived vulnerabilities. The second remark I want to share with you is the perspective from a large number of NGOs which see the potential of scaling up their projects through partnership, especially with city local governments. In fact, one of the biggest programs held in Rio de Janeiro, called Schools of Tomorrow, we have a beautiful picture with happy children there, designed specifically to attend children living in the most violent areas of the city, implemented an ambitious architecture, bringing different NGOs to develop their activities inside municipal primary schools. And those activities included mediation, teachers training on particular methodologies to work with violence-affected children, human rights education, etc. So, regarding most of the institutions we have met, there was also a shared preoccupation in order to design projects that do not reproduce a logic of exclusion in which most of their target public live in. So in São Paulo, we have, for example, an NGO called Educative Action, which develops a very important work in the outskirts of the city, promoting a substantial agenda, a cultural agenda in those regions. But they also have the preoccupation of not only supporting cultural activities in those centers in the outskirts of the city, but also bringing those young people to the center of the city. In fact, this is a strategy of appropriation of public spaces, of reducing stigmatization, contributing to a more inclusive urban dynamic is seen as a key element for different organizations in both states. We can also think about some of the technical and vocational training initiatives that avoid approach such as let's offer vocational and technical training even if they follow the least attractive models for young people living the outskirts of those dynamic urban centers. The other element I want to share with you, sorry? Oh, sorry. I'm thinking about my 10 minutes, in fact. Okay, we'll calibrate both. So the other element I want to share with you, it's the gender-oriented perspective, which also is a very important strategy for different initiatives, which pay attention, for example, to the inclusiveness of their projects. And here I can mention, for example, some NGOs working with sports which engage themselves in order to avoid stereotypes such as soccer or martial arts are for boys. And back to our metrics discussion, these gender-oriented approaches are truly an important reminder of the gender challenges that can be easily forgotten by our traditional metrics, security metrics, such as homicides, drugs, and arms, which are likely, in fact, to exclude challenges such as domestic violence and violence against women. So the final point I want to share with you, it's about the use of educational strategies by the military police in Rio de Janeiro, the city, especially in the communities attended by the UPP program, which is the Pacifying Police Units program, which is an important turning point in the former search and remove logic of police action in some of the areas of the city. Which was in fact a highly deadly one. So just to give you an idea, in 2007, 1 year before the beginning of the program, more than 1,300 people were killed during police operations only in the state of Rio. So more than 70 initiatives, including schooling, support, sports, and cultural activities, were mapped in the UPP areas. Until very recently, those initiatives lacked almost any level of institutionalization and were mainly spontaneous manifestations of some talents of policemen that could eventually count on the support of the UPP commander. So surely this could be seen as a typical counterinsurgency strategy of winning hearts and minds adopted by police officers. But the fact is that it has originated a state government initiative bringing together the Secretary of Public Security, the military police, and different NGOs, which were invited to share their experience in those areas. So besides the training part, this represents a big change in a city in which the dialogue between police force and grassroots NGOs was almost an impossible one. So just to fit, let's see what happens next. No, I need to finish. So I definitely share Maria's remark from yesterday that we cannot see educational strategies as a panacea for all the violence prevention and reduction challenges. And human rights and citizen education and teachers training cannot replace the need of improving policing and criminal justice and penal systems reform, nor the drug policy debate, but they can definitely play a very important role, for example, in more comprehensive urban violence prevention and reduction plans, especially at the city level. At the international level, in the context of the discussions of the SDGs, which bring together the debates of development and security, they could also promote important reflections about the way those
Michele,
educational strategies could contribute to different goals, such as those that you can see here in my final PowerPoint.
No,
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, Michele, but